Welcome to 2 Cents Short of a Dollar, the show where we give our 2 cents and keep it 100. We're your host, that's Motiz, and I'm Rue. Today, I want to talk about some boxing news. So, a little bit late to, but Keith Thurman knocks out Brock Jarvis, went up to Aussie, handled business. Any surprise there with the way that fight turned out?
Nah, actually, I thought Keith Thurman was gonna stop Jarvis, but I thought it was gonna be a little later, like round
Okay.
8, 7. But also, this is due to my ignorance of who Brock Jarvis was. I just
Yes.
know during the presser it was mentioned that he lost to Liam Paro when he used to fight at 140 pounds. So that kind of gave me an inkling. Okay, this guy's not really top tier, but it makes sense, right? Because Keith Thurman's been out the ring I think 3 years.
Mhm.
So he's looking to kind of just get his feet wet and just knock the rust off, really. So
Yeah.
he
I,
finished him quicker than I expected him to.
I don't know a ton about Brock Jarvis either, so I won't pretend to, but I know he got stopped by Liam Potter in 2022 at
Correct.
140. I don't really think he's like an old guy. So, like, I mean, less than 3 full years later to be fighting at 54 kind of seems like a quick jump, doesn't it? And I don't know. I don't know if he started lower than 40 or not, but that seems like a quick jump to be up to 54 already.
Bro, he fought at 160 pounds, I think, just like less than a year ago. Like,
Okay.
I think it was like 159, a weird weight. Like, he's been jumping up in different weight classes, which was really odd. And I'm glad you brought that up because
That's not
that's
good.
odd. That's really weird. I don't know what they're
Yeah.
doing with his career. He's just, I don't know. But maybe the Keith Thurman fight kind of just fell in his lap. But then I'm wondering, why did you move up a whole, because he moved up like 3 different weight classes in the span of like 4 years, 3 years. That's kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, he I guess he had to fight Keith Thurman at 54 because the obvious plan is to line it back up with Thurman and Zoo, right? And that was going
Right.
to take place at 54. So I think maybe Thurman acclimating to the weight, getting his feet wet at the weight, like you said, and Brock Jarvis is just, you know, meant to be fed to the wolves and be Keith Thurman's tune up. And then, Zoo fights next. I forgot what's the guy's name. Joey Spencer. He's fighting. So, they're trying to line back up the Thurman and Zoo. But yeah, I'm not really sure what they're doing with Brock Jarvis. But man, I mean, no surprise to you when I say this, but I feel like I'm one of the last Keith Thurman fans hanging on out there. Like I'm big on Keith Thurman. I really love his boxing IQ. I think he knows the sport well. He speaks the sport well. They say the power is one of the last things to go. But
Yep.
other than this is just to be honest, I know there's been a lot of Keith Thurman hate. Some people call him Keith, sometime Thurman. With all the jokes, it's all funny. But if we keep it real, except for maybe the first half of the Manny Pacquiao fight, when has Keith Thurman not really looked sharp?
Nah. Um,
I mean, the end
Against
of
Lopez.
Josecito Lopez, but he came out
Josecito
light.
Lopez, he looked
But he
really
came out
shaky.
lighting Josecito up. You know what I'm saying? He kind of got a little fatigue, maybe a little slow. But I'm saying, like, when has
Yeah.
he stepped in and not like been looking sharp? You know what I'm saying? So, like,
I guess it depends on like what you consider sharp. Like from my perspective, I'm not gonna lie, the 2 fights I always think about Josecito Lopez and Manny Pacquiao. But I understand because he was battling injuries, I guess. I don't
but
want to make excuses for him, but I
bro,
know
he
that was
was
during the
he
time.
was whipping Josecito, and then later on in
And
the fight,
when he
Josecito made
started
it look
losing rounds
illegal,
late in the fight, though.
huh?
He started losing rounds in the late fight, though. I
But
ain't
but
gonna
that's like
lie.
the second half. That's what I'm saying. Like, when have you seen Keith
Yeah.
Thurman come out like even after
Oh,
these
you talking about in the
hiatuses?
beginning in the rounds? Or
Like you know how like after a hiatus, someone comes out and they gotta like work off the ring rust and then kind of get themselves going. Like usually he comes back and he kind of looks like he's not coming off those long layoffs. You know what I'm saying? Now I get it.
like you talking about first half of the fight, not the totality of the fight, is what
Like
you're saying.
the Manny Pacquiao fight is the only fight where right out the gate you're like, okay, that guy's rusty.
I don't know. I feel like he had some success against Manny Pacquiao. I'm not gonna lie. It's just that what really screwed him up was those in between rounds and then the knockdown, and
Mhm.
you could tell like this is the thing about Keith Thurman. I'm not gonna lie. His durability shows in the latter half of the fights. Where when he was younger, he would pick on. Like, you understand what I mean? So I feel
Mhm.
like the reason why he's being given the moniker of sometime Keith is because recent years, due to injuries, layoffs, you can see like obviously if you have a layoff, you might look good in the first half of the fight, but the second half of the fight is going to show you if your conditioning is up to par. That always happens when you go on a 12th round fight. it's gonna show you, yo, are
Mm,
you like that? You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I don't know if that's what they kind of feared going into this fight, because this fight was a 10-round fight.
yeah.
So, which was kind of odd. But I'm not gonna lie, he looked good, but I'm not and I would agree with you that it's not like Keith Thurman looked like odd, or like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like maybe he doesn't deserve the criticism he gets, but I think the reason why he's called sometime Keith Thurman is because the totality of his performances is really what it is.
Yeah. I think people give him a hard time for like the hiatus. Like the Barrios fight was 3 years ago. That was his last fight
I think
before
he
this
looked
one.
good in the Barrios fight. I ain't gonna lie.
He looked
Barrios fight obviously hurt him, right, in a couple, but overall, I think he looked better in the Barrios fight compared to. I'm gonna go on the limb and say I think he looked better in the Barrios fight than he did in the Josecito Lopez fight. I ain't gonna lie.
so look at this. I'll say this. Barrios was no match for him. But some of those he lit Barrios up. So I mean that's possible. I mean totally, but I feel like early on the way he was lighting Josecito up, I don't know. He was throwing some bombs, but he tore Barrios up. Barrios didn't win a round. So I would have to concede and say he looked better in that
Yeah,
fight.
it's just a little, you know what it is in boxing, because even that fight, I had to go back because at first I'm like, Barrios gave some resistance. I'm not gonna. Barrios is one of those fighters. He gives resistance, so it's not like Keith Thurman was blowing him out the water, right? Like we didn't see domination like every single round. But then when I went back to look at the fight, I'm like, nah, I ain't gonna lie. Barrios is eating some shots. It just Barrios is able to eat some hellacious shots. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
He can
also, I think
punch.
it takes away because those moments, like when he's getting, I feel like Josito Lopez just had more success than Barrios did in the second half of the fight.
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like the
for
Barrios
sure.
fight, though, I feel like Keith Thurman was
Yeah,
consistent.
yeah.
I think he looked good in that. Overall, he was good in that fight. And that's a contender like
Yeah.
Mario Barrios, right? So
But Keith, yeah, and the Barrios win is aging beautifully. But
yes,
Keith, bro, he could punch. And I mean, this is not gonna be a very popular take. And I'm not even sure I'm going full fledged with this take, but because he's been out of sight, out of mind, like people have now anointed like Ryan Garcia, right? Because of the speed and stuff of his left hook. But Keith Thurman had arguably one of the best left hooks in boxing. You know what I'm saying?
where would you rank him? Where would you rank him in boxing at the time? Let's say in his like when Ryan Garcia is like, would you say he's top 3 best left hooks, or would you say top 2,
like like
arguably number
like
1?
we
So
talking
what you
about
say?
Keith, like in his heyday with the
Yeah, with
ponytail
the
and
hair, with the ponytail. Don't
definitely
say it.
top three, bro.
Oh,
Definitely
okay,
top
okay. I
three.
think he's gonna say top 1. I'm about
Yo, bro, he
I'm
might be,
about to
bro.
say
His left hook is crazy, bro.
it was, but I don't think that shit was, bro. Ryan shit is, bro.
Ryan's is really fast, right? And like so the trajectory of it. But what makes Keith's more dangerous to me is that Keith knows different ways to throw it. Ryan's is always the same. And hey, most people cannot stop that, right? But I feel like because Keith's
Bro.
IQ, it made his even more dangerous the way he threw his, bro.
Nah, I ain't gonna
Yo,
lie. I don't think his shit was touching Ryan shit. Because the thing
bro.
about Ryan, he don't have to move around and hit you. His shit is so fast and so devastating that you know it's coming and you could still get clipped with it.
Yeah,
That's what makes it so dangerous versus Keith. It's kind of like setups. Like, I gotta throw this left. And that's the good thing about Keith, because he could punch with both hands. So
yeah,
I think it's a combination. Yeah, he had a good left hook, but I ain't gonna lie, he was punching with the right too.
bro.
Especially what he was doing against like the likes of, that's how I know Danny Garcia got a good chin. Because he was punching, boom,
Yeah,
Sean Porter, boom. But at times he was kind of buckling them. Like they
yeah.
felt it. It was like, oh,
Mhm. You
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 know what I
you know
mean?
who Keith's hook is a little bit reminiscent of to me, or whose hook is a little reminiscent of Keith's to me? Kind
Cool.
of like Tio when Tio kind of leaps with that,
Okay, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Yup,
like
yeah,
Keith's hook is
yeah,
kind of like that, bro. And it's like
yeah.
you don't because they're so athletic, you don't think that's about to hit you, and the next thing you know, like you said, Danny Garcia, Sean Porter getting buckled, like, oh wait a minute, you know what I'm saying?
Nah,
But
I ain't gonna lie. Keith in his prime, man, he was a problem. He
yeah,
was a problem.
yeah,
Like when he was a unified champion, like I'm not even
yeah.
gonna lie, he was a
So
beast.
so let me ask you this now. I heard someone talking about this and they were just like, yo, I think, no, matter of fact, I heard Keith talking about this. Keith was talking about Tim Zoo because, like I said, they're lining that Tim Zoo fight back up. And he said, like, yo, this is a pivotal point for him in this Joey Spencer fight to see how he comes back after those two losses.
Yeah.
What do you think Tim has left after those two losses? Because I'll be honest, right? You can't take it back. He has the loss in the loss column against Fundora.
Right.
No one can convince me he wasn't crushing Fundora, about to get Fundora out of there before the cut, right? Now against Bakram, now he got stopped, right? He got stopped early, showed a lot of heart, but I guess two questions for you. What do you think he has left? And I know this is not anywhere on the books, but if he were to fight Bakram again, do you think it would go the exact same way? Or do you think he's kind of like overlooked him? So the second question is kind of like a joint question.
Um, I'll start with the second question. I think the fight looks much different if Tim Tszyu fights him again, right? Fights Baccarat again, because you can clearly see when you look at the fight, I think Tim Tszyu was going in there and he underestimated his opponent. He was going in there to make a statement by going to try to stop him. And he didn't realize this fool punching too. Like, I ain't gonna lie, like he really punching, and he got clipped and underestimated his opponent, and he paid the price. Now, if he has anything left in the gas tank, I would say yeah. One, that Fundora fight, he was obviously winning, which is a cut, and that kind of affected him. But after that, his only real bad loss is that last fight he had. And credit to his opponent, right? But I think it had more to do with Tim Tszyu than anything else in his approach. His approach was terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
So, I mean, he's also going to get, I guess, what you can consider a tune-up as well. So Keith, I'm going to call Brock Jarvis a tune-up fight. So now both coming off a tune-up fight, but, like I said, Tim Tszyu both, took back-to-back losses. Let's assume he beats Joey Spencer. Now he goes into that Keith Thurman fight. I think previously no one was giving Thurman a chance. Do you think Thurman is now a live dog in that fight?
I think he has a significantly better chance this time around. If he stays active and he stays healthy, yes, only because you don't know the ramifications of that loss that Tim Tszyu endured mentally. You don't know how he can bounce back. He might struggle against Joey Spencer. You know what I mean? Who many touted as, being a quote unquote boxing's industry plant, right? Being overrated. But nevertheless, I got to see how he boxes against Joey Spencer. He might be chinny. Who knows? Or mentally, he might not want to, engage like he used to. Losses could do something to you psychologically. But I don't know. Tim Tszyu he reminds me of someone that's of the old school mentality. Like, just brush it off and just get back in there.
I think he got that dog in him, bro. Like, for real.
I think he got that dog in him. And unlike the old school era, it's just during this day and age, especially with Turkey Ali Sheik in the mix, you ain't gonna go in there and just, unless they set it up for you to win, obviously, like with clear, easy matches. But sometimes you may get thrown in there with another dog, and it might not go your way again, So, yeah. But I have faith in Tim Tszyu getting past his opponent, and I think if him and Keith Thurman clash, Keith Thurman definitely got a big shot too, because he's still punching. So
yeah, so Keith is still punching. I mean, one thing we know, Tim Tszyu, though, he'll go to that body, and that's been giving it's been giving Thurman some issues. Right.
Yep.
So, I mean, I like the matchup. I wanted to see it the first time around. I don't know if we did a prediction the first time around. If we did, maybe I picked Tszyu, but I know, like I said, I like Thurman always. So I don't really remember who I picked, but I never thought Thurman had no chance. But I probably picked Tszyu. I probably still like Tszyu, to be honest with you, because I just think the pressure going to the body, and like you said, Keith's conditioning is really going to be a question for that fight. So definitely looking forward to it, though. But let's say Joey Spencer pulls off the upset, or for whatever reason, Tim Tszyu can't make the fight. Does Tim Tszyu need to? And I mean, we know this guy said he's never going to fight him, but should should Keith Thurman look for the Errol Spence fight?
Yeah, I know we definitely talked about it. I mean, at this point, Errol Spence, my guy, I understand why he didn't want to give Keith Thurman that fight, especially at his highest point, which is fair, because Keith Thurman ducked him, and he's like, nah, I'm never giving you this opportunity since I'm a unified champion at 147. Since he lost to Crawford, now moved up at 154 pounds, and we still have yet to see who he's going to fight, when he's going to fight. That also affects your stock. You
Hmm.
know, maybe it's an out of sight, out of mind situation. So when he come back, people beasting to kind of see him fight again, like Errol Spence, you know. But I think he's probably underestimating that because with Turkey in the mix and making these huge fights, you may come in a situation. Yeah, you might come and fight Keith Thurman, but the longer you wait, you're inevitably, I think, is gonna affect the stock of the fight, you know. But at this point in their careers, due to the unknown with Errol Spence and how Keith looked in his last fight, last couple fights, why not? Why not see the fight, right? Why
Yeah,
not? Let's see how it goes, you know, because
yeah,
I don't know. Errol Spence, there's some question marks too. The way you lost to Bud, I
yeah.
understand Bud is great, but the way you lost, man,
Yeah.
I
It,
gotta see
it, it,
you. I
it
don't
looked like
know.
you couldn't take a punch, and Keith can punch.
Right,
So
right.
like you said, there's some questions to be answered. If Keith taps Errol's chin, how does you know what I'm saying? And like I said, I'm not gonna go out and say, oh, Errol's chinny now. Like it was a bad night, right? But that's why we need these questions answered. So if you find another guy who can punch, a guy who can utilize his feet, has great ring IQ, you guys both haven't been the most active. Keith just took a tune-up, which is smart. Errol should probably take a tune-up, probably won't, but you know what I'm saying? I think it would answer a lot of questions for the both of them. Keith, what do you do against a guy who's going to put pressure on you, go to the body, which you've been vulnerable? You know what I'm saying? And Errol, you got no belts on the line. You're not really doing him a favor. I guess what are you going to say? Like you're giving him a payday, but we haven't seen you in a while. We don't know what kind of crowd is going to be garnered from that fight. You know what I mean? But I
Yeah,
would like to see it. I think it's a good fight.
yeah. I 100% agree, right? Because when was the last time? It's approaching 2 years since Errol last fought, right?
Hmm.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie. And I think the longer way and more active Keith's chances of winning, like, is right there. Now, it's not far fetched to say Keith won't beat Spence if Spence waits a considerable amount of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So jump in the comment section. Tell us what you guys think about the Keith Thurman performance. How do you see Keith Thurman versus Tim Tszyu? I can almost assure you, a couple of years ago, nobody was giving Keith a chance, or whenever that fight was lined up. But do you
it's
give
true.
Keith more of a chance now? What are you thinking of Tim Tszyu? And should Keith keep Errol Spence as the fail-safe plan? Should Errol finally comply and fight Keith Thurman? Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe.